a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Kolinda Grabar-Kitarović. Kolinda Grabar-Kitarović is a Croatian politician and diplomat serving as the fourth and current President of Croatia since 2015. She is the first woman to be elected to the office since the first multi-party elections in 1990. At 46 years of age, she also became the youngest person to assume the presidency. Before her election as President of Croatia, Grabar-Kitarović held a number of governmental and diplomatic positions. She was Minister of European Affairs from 2003 to 2005, the first female Minister of Foreign Affairs, and European integration from 2005 to 2008 in both the first and second cabinets of Ivo Sanader, Croatian Ambassador to the United States from 2008 to 2011, and Assistant Secretary General for Public Diplomacy at NATO under Secretaries General Anders Fogh Rasmussen and Jens Stoltenberg from 2011 to 2014. Grabar-Kitarović contested the presidential election held in December 2014 and January 2015 as the only female candidate, finishing as the runner-up in the first round, and thereafter proceeding to narrowly defeat incumbent President Ivo Sanader in the second round. Her strong performance in the first round was widely viewed as unexpected, as most opinion polls had given incumbent President Ivo Sanader a strong lead, and some even showed it was possible that he would win outright by acquiring more than 50% of the vote. In the second round, Grabar-Kitarović defeated Ivo Sanader by the closest percentage margin of any presidential election to date and received the smallest number of votes of any elected president in Croatia. Furthermore, as the country had previously also had a female prime minister, Jadranka Kosor, from 2009 until 2011, Grabar-Kitarovic's election as President of Croatia also included it into a small group of parliamentary republics which have had both a female head of state and head of government. Grabar-Kitarović was a member of the conservative Croatian Democratic Union Party from 1993 to 2015 and was also one of 3 Croatian members of the Trilateral Commission. But she was required to resign both positions upon taking office as president in 2015, as Croatian presidents are not permitted to hold other political positions or party membership while in office. In 2017, Forbes magazine listed Grabar-Kitarović as the world's 39th most powerful woman. Early life and education. Kolinda Grabar was born on the 29th of April 1968 in Rijeka, Croatia, then part of Yugoslavia, to Dubravka and Branko Grabar. She was raised mainly in her parents' village of Lopača, just north of Rijeka, where the family owned a butcher shop and a ranch. As a high school student, she entered a student exchange program and at 17 moved to Los Alamos, New Mexico, subsequently graduating from Los Alamos High School in 1986. Upon her return to Yugoslavia, she enrolled at the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, University of Zagreb, graduating in 1993 with a Bachelor of Arts in English and Spanish Languages and Literature. From 1995 to 1996, she attended the diploma course at the Diplomatic Academy of Vienna. In 2000 she obtained a master's degree in international relations from the Faculty of Political Science at the University of Zagreb. In 2002-2003 she attended George Washington University as a Fulbright scholar. She also received a Luksic Fellowship for the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University, and was a visiting scholar at the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins University. In December 2015, Grabar-Kitarović began her doctoral studies in international relations at the Zagreb Faculty of Political Science. Career. In 1992, Grabar-Kitarović became an advisor to the International Cooperation Department of the Ministry of Science and Technology. In 1993 she joined the Croatian Democratic Union. In the same year she transferred to the Foreign Ministry, becoming an advisor. She became the head of the North American Department of the Foreign Ministry in 1995 and held that post until 1997. That year she began to work at the Croatian Embassy in Canada as a diplomatic counselor until October 1998, and then as a minister counselor, when Social Democratic Party of Croatia came to power after 2000 elections. Tonino Picula became Minister of Foreign Affairs. After taking office, he immediately started to remove politically appointed staff that was appointed by the Croatian Democratic Union to high-ranking diplomatic positions. Grabar-Kitarović was ordered to return to Croatia from Canada within the next 6 weeks, which she at first refused to do, because she was pregnant and had already made plans to give birth in Canada. However, she eventually decided to return after being strongly pressured by the ministry to do so. During her stay in the hospital, she applied for Fulbright scholarship for studying international relations and security policy. She eventually moved to the United States and enrolled at the George Washington University. After graduating, she returned to Croatia and continued to live in Rijeka. 2 years later, she was elected to the Croatian Parliament from the 7th electoral district as a member of the Croatian Democratic Union in the 2003 parliamentary elections. With the formation of the new government led by HDZ chairman Ivo Sanader, she became Minister of European Integration, which entailed the commencement of negotiations regarding Croatia's accession to the European Union. After the separate ministries of Foreign Affairs and European Integration were merged in 2005, Grabar-Kitarović was nominated to become the head of the new ministry as Minister of Foreign Affairs and European Integration. She was confirmed by the Parliament and sworn in on the 17th of February 2005. Her main task as Foreign Minister was to guide Croatia into the European Union and NATO. On the 18th of January 2005, she became head of the state delegation for negotiations on the Croatian accession to the European Union. Furthermore, on the 28th of November 2005, she was elected by the international community to preside over the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention's 6th meeting of the states parties, or Ottawa Treaty, held that year in Zagreb. Grabar-Kitarović was the first woman to be named president of the Ottawa Treaty. Following the HDZ's victory in the 2007 parliamentary election and the subsequent formation of the second Sanader cabinet, she was reappointed as foreign minister, but was suddenly removed from the position on the 12th of January 2008. The exact reason for her removal is not known. Gordon Jandriković succeeded her. On the 8th of March 2008, with President Stjepan Mesić's help, she became the Croatian ambassador to the United States, where she replaced Neven Jurica. She served as ambassador until the 4th of July 2011. In 2010, a scandal broke out at the Croatian embassy in Washington, D.C. when it was revealed that Grabar-Kitarovic's husband, Jakov, had been using an official embassy car for private purposes. Namely, a member of the embassy's security staff have followed and filmed Mr. Kitarović for days, and footage of the events was posted on YouTube, but were later removed. As a result, Foreign Minister Gordon Jandriković launched an internal investigation because of Jakov Kitarovic's unauthorized usage of the official car, as the unauthorized filming of members of the diplomatic staff and their families by a member of the embassy's security staff. The investigation concluded that Grabar-Kitarović herself was, despite having an embassy-owned Cadillac DTS with a driver available to her 24 hours a day, using another embassy car, a Toyota Sienna, for private purposes. Grabar-Kitarović claimed that her duties continue for 24 hours a day and that she cannot separate her working life from her private life. She later paid for all expenses that occurred due to her husband's unauthorized using of the car, while the member of embassy's security staff who had filmed her family was fired. In 2011, Grabar-Kitarović submitted her resignation as ambassador and on the 4th of June 2011 became Assistant Secretary General of NATO for Public Diplomacy. She was criticized because of the way she left her position in Washington, D.C. Namely, Grabar-Kitarović had failed to inform Prime Minister Jadranka Kosor in advance of her plans to resign as ambassador, so Kosor was not prepared to appoint a replacement on time. As a result, the position of Croatian ambassador to the United States was vacant for almost 9 months after Grabar-Kitarovic's departure. Grabar-Kitarović, however, said that she did in fact inform the newly elected President of Croatia, Social Democrat Ivo Josipović, of her plans, and Josipović subsequently confirmed these claims in December 2014, stating that he even gave his personal contribution to her appointment to NATO by writing Grabar-Kitarović a written opinion that she needed from someone reputable. Grabar-Kitarović also said that she had on 2 occasions offered herself to Prime Minister Kosor and also to return to Croatia, so as to make herself available to the HDZ for the 2011 parliamentary elections. Furthermore, stating that Kosa had just ignored her offers and that it is for this reason that Grabar-Kitarović decided not to communicate with the Prime Minister any further. When Grabar-Kitarović saw an ad for a job at NATO in The Economist magazine, she thought that the job was well suited for her, but in the end decided not to apply for it. It was only when NATO failed to choose a candidate for the job in 2 rounds that she finally applied, and in the 3rd round she received the position. During her term at NATO she often visited Afghanistan and the Croatian soldiers that are deployed there as part of a peacekeeping mission. Her task was to take care of the communication strategy and to bring NATO closer to the common people. Her colleagues at NATO often referred to her as Swambo. Grabar-Kitarović was the first woman ever to be appointed to the position. She served as Assistant Secretary General in NATO until the 2nd of October 2014. She was invited to join the Trilateral Commission and became an official member in April 2013. Presidential candidacy. Croatian daily newspaper Jutarnji List published an article in September 2012 stating that Grabar-Kitarović was being considered as a possible candidate for the 2014-15 Croatian presidential election by the Croatian Democratic Union. It was confirmed in mid-2014 that she was to become the party's official candidate, going up against incumbent Ivo Josipović and newcomers Ivan Vilibisincic and Milan Kujancic. In the first round of election in December 2014, Grabar-Kitarović won 37.2% of the vote, second to Josipović who received 38.5%, while Sincic and Kujancic won 16.4% and 6.3% of the vote respectively. Since no candidate received more than 50% of the vote, a runoff election was scheduled between the top 2 candidates, Josipović and Grabar-Kitarović, in 2 weeks' time. The runoff took place on the 11th of January 2015, with Grabar-Kitarović winning 50.7% of the vote. She thereby became Croatia's first female post-independence head of state and the country's first conservative president in 15 years. She was ceremonially sworn into office on the 15th of February, and assumed office officially at midnight on the 19th of February 2015. Upon election, Grabar-Kitarović became the first woman in Europe to defeat an incumbent president running for re-election, as well as the second woman in the world to do so, after Violeta Chamorro of Nicaragua in 1990. She is also the first candidate of any gender to defeat an incumbent Croatian president. In addition, Grabar-Kitarović is the only presidential candidate to date to have won a Croatian presidential election without having won the most votes in the first round of elections, as she lost it by 1.24% or 21,000 votes. Furthermore, the 1.114 million votes she received in the second round is the lowest number of votes for any winning candidate in a presidential election in Croatia. And the 1.48% victory margin against Josipović is the smallest in any such election to date. Presidency 2015-present. Less than 9 months into Grabar-Kitarovic's term, the European migrant crisis began to escalate, with large numbers of migrants entering Greece and Macedonia and crossing from Serbia into Hungary, with the latter beginning the construction of a fence on its southern border as a result. In September 2015, after Hungary constructed a fence and closed its border with Serbia, the flow of migrants was redirected towards Croatia, causing over 21,000 migrants to enter the country by the 19th of September, with the number rising to 39,000 immigrants, while 32,000 migrants exited Croatia, leaving through Slovenia and Hungary. She appointed Andrija Hebrang her commissioner for the refugee crisis. With the parliament expected to dissolve by the 25th of September, Grabar-Kitarović called parliamentary elections for the 8th of November 2015. They proved inconclusive and negotiations on forming a government lasted for 76 days. Grabar-Kitarović had previously announced on the 22nd of December 2015, if there were no agreement on a possible prime minister designate in the next 24 hours, she would call for an early election and name a non-partisan transitional government, thereby putting intense pressure on the political parties involved in the negotiations regarding the formation of the new government, to find a solution. The crisis finally ended on the 23rd of December 2015 when Grabar-Kitarović gave the 30-day mandate to form a government to the non-partisan Croatian-Canadian businessman Tihomir Orsković, who had been selected by HDZ. And most only hours before the expiration of the president's delegated time frame for the naming of a prime minister-designate. On the 24th of August 2015, Grabar-Kitarović was, as Armed Forces Commander-in-Chief, presented with a petition for the introduction of a Croatian fascist Ustase movement salute za dom spremni to the official use in the Croatian armed forces. She immediately rejected petition, calling it frivolous, unacceptable and provocative. On the 29th of September 2015, at the initiative of Grabar-Kitarović, the Atlantic Council co-hosted an informal high-level Adriatic-Baltic Black Sea leaders meeting in New York City, which would later grow to Three Seas Initiative. The initiative was officially formed in 2016 and held its first summit in Dubrovnik, Croatia, on 25–26 of August 2016. On the 11th of April 2016, after meeting with Nicholas Dean, the Special Envoy for Holocaust of the United States Department of State, Grabar-Kitarović stated that the independent state of Croatia was least independent and was least protecting the interests of the Croatian people, adding that the Ustase regime was criminal regime, that anti-fascism is in the foundation of the Croatian constitution, and that the modern Croatian state has grown on the foundations of the Croatian War of Independence. In May 2016, Grabar-Kitarović visited Tehran on the invitation of Iranian President Hassan Rouhani. Rouhani called on Croatia to be the gateway to Iran's ties with Europe. The two presidents reaffirmed the traditionally good relations between their countries and signed an agreement on economic cooperation. According to a poll conducted in May 2016 for Nova TV, 47% of people do not approve her work, while 45% do. In March 2016, her work was approved by 52% of people. Nevertheless, she is still the most popular politician with 57%, while the Prime Minister Tihomir Orsković is the second with 55%. In October 2016, Grabar-Kitarović made an official visit to Baku, Azerbaijan, where she expressed her support for the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, stating that the solution to this conflict must be peaceful and political. Grabar-Kitarović expressed her condolences to Slobodan Praljak's family after he committed suicide in The Hague, where he was facing trial, calling him a man who preferred to give his life rather than to live, having been convicted of crimes he firmly believed he had not committed, adding that his act struck deeply at the heart of the Croatian people and left the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia with the weight of eternal doubt about the accomplishment of its tasks. In a speech held at the ceremony at which Grabar-Kitarović was named honorary citizen of Buenos Aires in March 2018, she stated that, after World War II, many Croats found a space of freedom in Argentina where they could testify to their patriotism and express their justified demands for the freedom of the Croatian people and homeland. Since a number of Ustaše officials fled to Argentina after World War II, her statement was interpreted by some as support for them. In a press release, Grabar-Kitarović rejected malicious interpretations of her statement, stating among other, "It's sad that even today the sacrifice of many emigrants is not recognized, who were not allowed to express their patriotism in their own country, their desire for freedom and Croatia's independence, and who, during the era of the former Yugoslavia, were imprisoned, prosecuted and even murdered." Croats emigrated to Argentina in 3 waves of emigration starting in 1848, continuing between 1918 and 1939, and culminating between 1945 and 1956, when around 20,000 people, mostly political emigrants, emigrated. During the 2018 FIFA World Cup, held in Russia, Grabar-Kitarović attended the quarter-final and final matches, wearing the colors of the national flag in support of the national team, which ultimately ended up as tournament runners-up. According to the analytics company Media Toolkit, she emerged as her country's star of the tournament, with 25% more focus on her and news stories about the final than any of the players on the pitch, as she traveled to Russia at her own expense in economy class and often watched from the non-VIP stands. Brought to you by WikiVidi documentaries. Would you like to know more?